When people hear a number like 100 sexual partners, their brain doesn't react with curiosity. It reacts with judgment, but psychology doesn't ask, is this right or wrong? Psychology asks something far more uncomfortable. What psychological processes make this behavior possible and sometimes necessary for a person? This video is not about morality. It's not about praise or condemnation. It's about understanding human behavior without emotional shortcuts. Human brains are wired to associate sex with bonding, attachment, and exclusivity. So when someone breaks that expectation, our brain interprets it as a threat to social norms. But psychology separates behavior from identity. A high number of sexual partners is not a personality trait. It is an outcome, the visible result of invisible psychological factors. To understand those factors, psychology looks at emotional regulation, attachment, history, reward, sensitivity, trauma responses, cultural conditioning, not character. One of the strongest predictors of sexual behavior patterns is attachment style. 1. Avoidant attachment. Some women learn early that emotional closeness leads to disappointment, control, or pain, so the brain adapts. Physical intimacy without emotional dependence, connection without vulnerability, exit without grief. Sex becomes safe because it stays shallow, not because they don't feel, but because they learned that feeling deeply was dangerous. 2. Anxious attachment. In other cases, intimacy is used to prevent abandonment. The subconscious belief is, if I am desired, I won't be left. Sex becomes reassurance, not pleasure. For some individuals, sexual attention becomes tied to self-worth. This doesn't mean insecurity in a simplistic way. It means the brain has learned. Attention equals value, desire equals proof of existence. This pattern often forms when emotional validation was inconsistent, praise was conditional, love was earned, not given. Sexual desirability becomes a measurable identity. I exist because I am wanted. Some brains are more sensitive to dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and novelty. These individuals get bored faster, seek new stimulation, feel emotionally flat in repetition. This same neurological profile appears in extreme sports, risk-taking careers. Compulsive novelty-seeking sex becomes another high dopamine activity, not because of addiction, but because of neurochemical responsiveness. In some cases, high sexual autonomy follows a loss of control earlier in life. When a person experiences emotional powerlessness, objectification, violation of boundaries, the psyche may respond by reclaiming control through choice. The logic becomes, this time I choose. Sex becomes agency, not submission. This is not universal, but it is clinically observed. The brain is adaptive. Repeated short-term intimacy trains the nervous system to separate sex from bonding, reduce oxytocin. Impact. Avoid emotional dependency. Over time, intimacy becomes transactional, not emotional. This does not mean inability to love. It means the brain has learned a different intimacy language. Psychology does not say, she is damaged. She cannot form long-term relationships, she lacks morals, she is incapable of love. Those are social judgments, not scientific conclusions. Some women with high partner counts later form stable, healthy relationships, some don't. Just like everyone else, sexual behavior does not develop in a vacuum. Culture silently programs what intimacy means. In societies where sexual freedom is normalized, commitment is delayed, dating apps gamify attraction, sex becomes social currency, not emotional ritual. For some women, high partner counts reflect environmental adaptation, not internal conflict. Psychology calls this norm internalization. The mind adjusts to what is rewarded, visible, and normalized. Some individuals unconsciously separate physical sensation from emotional presence. This isn't coldness, it's a protective neurological strategy. The brain learns, feel less to hurt less. Detach to stay functional. Sex becomes a bodily experience without emotional exposure. This pattern often develops in people who learned early that emotions were unsafe, ignored, or punished. Not all patterns are defensive. For some women, multiple partners reflect identity exploration. Psychologically, this is linked to late individuation, rejection of traditional scripts, experimentation with boundaries and preferences. This is closer to exploration than escape. Psychology recognizes this as self-construction, not pathology. One of the biggest misconceptions is that high sexual experience automatically leads to emotional numbness. Research does not support this as a universal outcome. Emotional capacity is influenced by self-awareness, emotional literacy, secure relational experiences, not partner count. Some emotionally healthy people have high sexual histories. Some emotionally unhealthy people have very few. The number itself predicts nothing without context. Social discomfort comes from expectation violation. Women are still subconsciously expected to be gatekeepers of intimacy, tie sex to commitment, limit desire. When a woman breaks that script, it destabilizes collective beliefs about control gender roles, emotional power. So the reaction isn't about psychology. It's about threatened norms. Yes, sometimes. Attachment isn't erased by experience. It's reshaped by reflection and emotional safety. When a person processes their patterns, develops emotional insight, feels genuinely chosen, the nervous system can relearn bonding. Psychology calls this attachment plasticity. Change is not guaranteed, but it is possible. Psychology becomes concerned only when behavior feels compulsive, is used to numb emotional pain, causes distress or loss of control, replaces emotional processing. At that point, the issue is not sex, it's avoidance. Healthy psychology asks, is this behavior serving the person or escaping something? There is a critical difference between choice compulsion. Choice feels grounded, compulsion feels urgent. Psychology never judges the action. It evaluates the relationship to the action. That distinction changes everything. A woman who has had sex with 100 people is not a category. She is a story. Sometimes that story includes pain, sometimes power, sometimes curiosity, sometimes culture, sometimes nothing dramatic at all. Psychology does not reduce humans to numbers. It studies adaptation. And adaptation always makes sense when you finally understand what the mind was responding to. Understanding isn't approval, and it isn't condemnation, it's clarity. Share your experience in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more psychology-based content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.